Merab Dvalishvili is once again going to dominate Sean O'Malley.
Undisputed UFC Bantamweight Champion of the World.
I was thinking to beat O'Malley. I know he was good, but I make him normal. I make him look normal.
Sean, some people say you're getting something called Dana White privilege, that you're getting a quick rematch without really proving yourself as a champ. What do you think about that?
Thanks, Dana. I think Merab beats Sean O'Malley up again because Sean O'Malley's gonna have to make some huge adjustments where he's gonna have to expose himself in order to land that big KO shot. He's got 25 minutes to land that KO shot.
He got a lot of confidence versus Merab. Like, he went 25 minutes against the cardio machine, and people forget that in the 5th round, he was stalking Merab down, and he won the 5th round. He hurt him bad in the 5th. So even though he did get beat, he did get a lot of confidence from going 25 minutes with that guy.
I don't think there's anybody to beat Merab. O'Malley beaten, Umar beaten, Jan beaten. Sandhagen hasn't fought, but I would pick him to beat him. I don't see anybody anytime soon beating Merab.
Merab vs. Sean are set for the main event of UFC 316, and although Sean is a really good fighter and has a really exciting style, I'm here to tell you that Merab will once again not only beat Sean O'Malley, but he's going to dominate him. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicyMMA. I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. Also, if you haven't already, click that join button for exclusive perks. But anyways, let's get into it. When you look throughout the career of Merab Dvalishvili, it's pretty clear that this guy has an incredible style and has incredible skill. When you look at some of the guys he was able to beat, you talk about Marlon Moraes, Jose Aldo, Peter Yan, Henry Cejudo, Sean O'Malley, and most recently Umar Nurmagomedov. Obviously an incredible list, but when you also consider that Merab is on a 12-fight win streak, is currently the champion of 135 pounds, and doesn't appear to be looking back, it's even that much more impressive. So a question that's some of you may be wondering at this point is, how has Merab Dvalishvili been able to be so successful thus far? Well, it comes down to a couple different factors, but the first factor I want to touch upon is his overall skill. Because when you talk about Merab, the first and most obvious thing that most people think about is his wrestling. When you watch a lot of his fights out there, what he does very effectively is utilize that wrestling in order to take his opponents down time in and time again. And although he doesn't necessarily have the best control time in the world, essentially what Merab does out there to utilize that great wrestling ability he has is take his opponents down 50, 60, even 70 times if he's able to in a particular fight. And essentially what he's trying to accomplish at that point is tire out his opponents. And once you get to the 4th, 5th, or maybe even 3rd round against Merab, his opponents are most likely going to be very tired, takedowns are going to be that much easier, and then he's going to start to control the fight even more than he was early on. But besides just his tremendous wrestling ability, Merab has also improved upon his striking ability pretty significantly. Because when you look at some of his more recent fights against Umar, against Sean, against Cejudo, and against Peter Yan, he was able to have success in the striking against all of those guys. And when you talk specifically about Umar, Sean O'Malley, and even Peter Yan, and even a little bit less so, Henry Cejudo, all 4 of those guys are known to have pretty good striking out there. So the fact that Merab was able to have some success against all of those guys in the striking really shows to the amount of work that he's been putting into his striking ability. But the next factor for why I think Merab has been so successful thus far is something that I touched upon a little bit before, but that's due to his cardio. Because when you talk about Merab and his cardio, it's something that we've never seen before. Because in a lot of my videos, when I talk about champions or when I talk about up-and-coming fighters, a big thing I touch upon is physicality. But when you look at Merab, he doesn't have all that many finishes at all on his record, but he still has been able to become champ, and he still has been able to be one of the more dominant fighters in the entire UFC. And he's been able to do that very differently than most champions do. He's been able to do that based on cardio. When you talk about Merab's cardio, obviously by far he has the best cardio currently of any fighter in the UFC, but honestly I think when you look at any fighter of all time, Merab has the best cardio ever as well. And I think a perfect example to demonstrate how good Merab's cardio truly is his fight against Peter Yan. Because when you look back at that fight, Peter Yan was able to stop a lot of takedowns, and at times when he did get taken down, he was able to get back up. And a lot of times when you look at legit wrestlers out there over 3 or 5 rounds that shoot in for a bunch of takedowns, get stuffed on a lot of those takedowns, or even if they're able to get them and their opponents get up right away, that's very tiring for the guy who's consistently shooting in for takedowns. But in that fight against Jan, Merab was able to shoot in for 40 or 50 takedowns. I don't remember the final number, but he was able to shoot in for a bunch of takedowns, and by the end of the 5th round, it didn't even look like he was tired. So the level of conditioning and the level of cardio that Merab has based upon that fight, and of course based upon all of his fights following and even previous to that, is a perfect example of why Merab has been able to be so successful based on his cardio. When you look at his fight against Henry Cejudo, he was able to gas Cejudo in the 2nd round. When you look at his fight against Sean O'Malley, he was able to gas Sean O'Malley in that fight. When you look at his fight against Umar, he was able to gas Umar in the 3rd round and going forward from there as well. It's pretty clear that Merab has a style that is just very difficult to beat, and I will go as far as saying that I don't think you'll ever be able to beat Merab in a 5-round decision. If you're going to beat Merab, you're going to have to finish him. But now, another question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, why do I think Merab is going to dominate Sean O'Malley once again? Well, in my opinion, the first factor that I want to touch upon is game planning, because when you look at Merab's first fight against Sean, he fought completely differently than he normally does. What Merab does is something that I talked about already in this video, but what he does is he constantly shoots in for takedown after takedown, tire out his opponents, and once the fight gets to the 3rd, 4th, or even 5th round, his opponents are completely gassed. Merab can then start to dominate from there and easily win a decision following that. But when you look at his fight against Sean O'Malley the first time, he fought completely differently. He was staying all the way out for the most part, utilizing footwork, making Sean O'Malley come to him, and essentially making Sean O'Malley fight a game that he's not used to fighting. Sean O'Malley is a tremendous counter striker, but when he has to be on the front foot, he's not nearly as effective. And Merab and his team knew that. So essentially what they were forcing Sean O'Malley to do is be on the front foot, try to strike, try to knock out Merab while backing him down, which is just something that Sean was not prepared for. And based upon that, Merab was able to dance around the cage, tire out Sean a little bit, and at times when he's able to find openings, Merab would shoot in for a takedown perfectly, get them, or even if he didn't get them, at least force Sean to work against that takedown and tire him out slowly over time. And once the fight did get to the 5th round, although Sean did win that 5th round, he was clearly tired at that point and Merab had won that fight. So I think based upon that, going to his next fight, I think Merab and his team are going to come up with a perfect game plan in order to beat Sean, and I think they're going to be able to be very successful once again. But the next reason for why I think Merab is going to win this fight is due to his wrestling, because when you look at some of Merab's fights as of late, against Umar, against Peter Yan, of course against Henry Cejudo, he's been able to wrestle all of those guys. And although Sean does have a pretty good ability to stop takedowns at times, he does have that lengthier frame that does at times help at stopping takedowns. For the most part, I think Merab's wrestling is just going to be too good once again for Sean, and when he does decide to go in for those takedowns, I think he's going to be very successful with them. And whether or not he's able to control Sean on the ground, I don't really think that's the point. It's really never the point in any of his fights. Yes, Merab would love to control the fight on the ground if he's able to, but even if he's not, he's still having success, because when you're forcing Sean to stop takedowns or get back up after getting taken down, you're forcing Sean to be on the defense for one, but also for two, utilize a lot of energy. And as the fight does progress, and as Sean does use more and more of that energy playing defense, the power and pop on his shots as the fight goes on are going to be less and less, and it's going to be a lot easier to see a lot of the shots that Sean's throwing later on in that fight. And of course, even if they do land, it'll be a lot easier to take the shots that Sean does throw, as they'll probably be less powerful than earlier on. So I think if and when Merab does wrestle, he's going to be having success regardless of if he gets a takedown or not, or regardless of if he's able to control Sean on the ground or not. So overall, my official prediction for this fight is a Merab victory. A 49-46 scorecard seems about right, possibly even a 50-45. I think it's going to be a very dominating decision victory once again for Merab Dvalishvili. Now, with all that being said, when you look at some of the guys at 135, I do think Sean probably has the best chance, although there are some better fighters at 135, maybe like an Umar or maybe like a Peter Yan. At the end of the day, the reason why I think Sean has the best chance to beat Merab is due to the fact that he's able to finish him and he does have that one-shot KO power. Because as I mentioned before in the video, if you're going to fight Merab, you're going to have to finish him to beat him. If it goes to a decision, I think he essentially beats everybody for a very long time. So yes, there always is that possibility that Sean does find that big right hand and he does find a KO from there, but as I said, I don't think that's very likely, and I'm still going with Merab to win this fight. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Merab is going to dominate Sean O'Malley once again, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now. And until the next time, peace out, guys.